What's going on, world? Welcome back to another edition of the Black Mental Health Podcast. I'm your host, Reg. Joined today with me as a special guest. And this one is special more so in just time-wise, just evolution and growth. And the older I get, the more I appreciate just having time on this planet, because it's not guaranteed. So just seeing people as they evolve and grow is a blessing. I don't introduce anybody. I let everybody introduce themselves and the credentials. So please introduce yourself to the people.
Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Willie Lee James, Willie from Philly. I'm a realtor, newly insured with life insurance. I'm a Black man living in this country, trying to stay alive and do the right thing. So I just keep it brief, but I'm glad to be on here. It's been a long time, but I'm glad that we connected during this time period, and I'm ready to get into some good conversations, just seeing how I can be of benefit to somebody else listening.
Nah, thank you for that. And I'll start off asking, and I forget to do it often, but I'm gonna try to do it more. Is just how are you, just in general as a person? You know, sometimes we be asking people how are you, and I'm like, yo, I'm straight, I'm good, I'm cool. But like just in general, overall health, well-being, how are you?
I'm gonna be very honest. Sometimes you have your good days, sometimes you have your bad days. That's just the way of life, right? Life is hard, and how you approach life can make that hardship a little bit easier on you. So I'm good overall. But like I said, sometimes you have your days, like I'm not doing this enough. I need to do better in this area, whatever, what have you. May have some frustrations with, plays that you want to run and jump starting businesses and earning more income. But overall, I'm blessed, and I really can't say I can complain either. Especially when you look at what's all going on in the world. You got people that's refugees, you got people, that's fighting for their lives, whether that is domestic violence, whether that is, a uncurable disease, whatever that is. So, I try not to complain too much, because I know where I'm at in life. And if I take that approach and say, somebody else out here is really dealing with something of a much more severe level, I gotta look back and say, you know what, I really am blessed. So overall, I am. So yeah.
No, I thank you for answering that way, because I think what I'm starting to learn is that every happiness is a fleeting thing, and you're supposed to appreciate it while you got it. You know what I mean? Because it's going to be something tomorrow that'll happen, and it'll take that happiness. So it's a everyday struggle to obtain that happiness every single day.
Yeah, man. Like, I know in this world, in this culture, it's a thing about pursuing your passion and do whatever makes you happy. I really don't agree with that, man. And it has its proper context, but a lot of people just throw it out there. You got people that what makes them happy is shooting cocaine or whatever have you that makes them happy and feels like they're getting away from the world. So, I try to not focus on happiness, because like I said earlier, life is hard for most people, not unless you were born into a will and a trust and you got millions of dollars, thousands of dollars or whatever, what have you. And even sometimes with them, that's not enough.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think it's about finding your purpose, your God-given purpose, why you were made, why you're here on this earth, walking in that and just being a servant to others while you're in your purpose. I think what I'm realizing in my life these days is just, how can I be of service to somebody else? When I think about life, we got one life to live, bro. One life to live. We don't get to do this again. Like, I think when people realize that you only get to do this one time, it may click that I want to be the best me possible. So that's where I'm at, honestly. Like, I want to be the best mentally, physically, emotionally, most of all, spiritually, and just holistically. That's where I want to be at, because I only get to do this once. When my time to be a husband comes, I want to be the greatest husband I can be. When my time to be a father comes, I want to be the greatest father I can be. And right now I'm working on being the best brother, being the best friend, whatever that is. Like, I'm just working on being the best me as possible, because you really only get to do this once. And then when you look at our community, we're not in the best state. I don't know if you ever heard of Dr. Claude Anderson. He has a book called Fatherhood. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he talks about the state of Black people, man. And I want to make sure that I can be how can I say it? I can be a peculiar person, and I'm not caught up into the group stuff that normally is associated with Black people. Like, I want to have the best mentality emotionally, and I want to spread that as much as possible to other people so they can understand you don't have to do the norm or what is associated to Black people. When you look at TV, sometimes there's a negative connotation that all you got to be is a drug dealer, for example, or all you got to do is be an NBA player, or all you got to do is just act hard and tough. You can't be in a suit. So, it's just about being the best you so you can be a service to somebody else.
You said a few things in there I want to go and break down. And to give context to people, me and Willie went to the same high school, and that's 09 was our graduation year. So that's over 20. Whew, I just thought about that. Like, that's a minute ago. So that's to give you the context of the basis of how this came together. But the question that I had that you said, like, just living like what your purpose is and trying to find a way to be of service. I'm trying to find the question in there. The question I'll start off with, and as it develops, I'll ask another way. What was your breakthrough moment of, like, you know what, I have to separate from this normal? And what I mean by that is it wasn't until I started seeing new things and reading new things and experiencing new things that when I came back to, like, Logan, for example, where a lot of my youth was, I was like, man, this is chaotic. Like, this is chaos right now. And just trying to understand about how we're in like a circus that we don't know we're a part of. And until you're out of the circus, like, what was your moment of that reality? Is that true for you anyway? Let me ask that first. Was that true for you? And what was your moment of, like, discovery?
So I'll be honest with you, man. I grew up in a two-parent home, a Christian home at that. My father is very active, and he always told me I was different, and I couldn't do what everybody else did. And I've been hearing that since I was a kid. And even at the age and stage that I am now, it still weighs on me, that message that I always did want to be different. I didn't want to do what everybody else did. And that still sticks with me, like I said, to this day. I don't want to be associated with what most people do, how most people are. And I'm trying my best to make sure, and not that I'm like better than anybody or anything like that, because I'm definitely not, but in a positive and a healthy way, you do want to separate yourself from the norm of what people do and tend to do that may not be in their best interest, at heart. So for me, like, I always was in the things that maybe most of my friends wasn't really into. And that's just how my makeup is. Like, for example, most people have a 9 to 5, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's how you feed yourself. I had a 9 to 5. I was a sales rep, I was a territory manager, then I went to a regional manager for fintech companies, right? But I just know if I want to live the life that I want to live and separate myself, I'm gonna have to try the entrepreneurship route and really give it my best try. Everybody's not willing to do that. Most of the country is not willing to do that. But that's something that I realized that I wanted to be different in. So now I'm doing that. Another thing was a lot of people don't really have the best eating habits, and I was at a point in my life, maybe in like 2017, I wasn't the best mentally. I wasn't the best emotionally. And I had to take a real look at myself. I was talking to my old head the other day, and he told me to do this a while ago. Like, look at yourself in the mirror and have an honest conversation with yourself. Be that therapist for your own self and look at the things that you consider flaws, which you want to get better, and attack those things, tackle those things. So for me, man, like, one of the things was like my eating habits, like how we eat, especially as a Black community when it comes to soul food, is treacherous. It breaks down the body in a ridiculous way where these diseases and diagnoses are coming upon us. But if we do something by just changing their eating habits, that can make a huge difference. And it made a huge difference for me. I went plant-based for a year and it changed everything. It changed like my perspective on life. My mind was clear. My hair got darker. My skin got clear. If I woke up 8 o'clock in the morning, it felt like I woke up at 7:30 in the morning. Like I was already up,
Mm.
and I had a clear mind. Like I can tackle the day, and my attitude was better. So it's just stuff like that, man. I had a conversation earlier, and I was just telling my friend, I'm like, "Yo, I'm really trying to be better as much as possible." And I know I said it earlier, but it's so true. We got one life to live, man. We don't get to do this again. So it behooves you just to be the best person that you could be for yourself. I think if you start with that, if you could be a better person for yourself, then you could really be of service to other people.
You talked about two things. It's a lot of questions going in my mind. I'm trying to control them all right now.
Yeah.
You talked about two things, and I want to combine the two, and the importance of mentorship. And you was talking about having a old head, and then the importance of having your father growing up in a two-parent household. How? What's your viewpoint on brothers, and I say brothers as Black men, who don't have that luxury of having to find? I don't know why it's a luxury. It should be a guarantee, but that luxury of having a father, because I didn't have had father figures throughout my life, but I didn't have my dad in my household. How did you relate or have even conversation when you see the struggles and the benefit of what you get, and just the I don't know, just because I used to be not offended, what's the word, jealous, there we go, jealous of when you see that, and just not still being able to relate, but still knowing that you coming from a different value system.
hmm Yeah, man. Like I was a person more times than not out of my friends that had their father, right? And he was active and everybody else didn't have that luxury. It shouldn't be looked at it as a luxury, like you said, but as we know, slavery, all that's going on, even to this day, it has a great impact on fatherhood. And that's really what's killing our community, that head honcho, because your father means a lot, man. He gives you your identity, your equity, and your dignity. And that's really kind of your first image to be accurate of what God looks like. For those that don't have a father, that's when you then really look at your heavenly father for those things and let him lead you and guide you. But for the brothers that don't have a father, I would say for all those emotions that you grew up having in those resentments of not having your father, not having that protection, that heading, I would say it try your best to forgive whatever that situation presented itself. Forgive your father or even your mother if she kind of pushed your dad away, whatever the case may be. Forgive that and love yourself enough to say, you know what, I want to be better. I want to do better because I recognize what I went through. So why would I want my seed to go through the same thing? Nobody wants to feel unloved. Nobody wants to feel not protected, concerned about. And I know a lot of brothers probably felt that way. I got friends who I had some honest conversations with, and they telling me like, my dad ain't this or my dad ain't that. He was a womanizer and this, that, and the third. And all I can really say is look towards your heavenly father, like I said earlier, and also make sure that you're implementing the things that you wish you would have had done with your own self when you're a father, when it's your time to be a dad. But as a whole, this community, like I said earlier, is really missing that fatherhood, even with the young ladies, not even just the brothers. Like, your father protects you, man. He gives you that game. Like my sister, you know, my dad did a great job with my sister. My sister's a lawyer.
Mm.
She's in school for theology now. And growing up, I can say this, kind of proudly. I mean, you don't know everything somebody's doing, but I can say for the most part, my sister was respectable, right? She carried herself like a lady. And I gotta attribute that to my mom, but my dad as well, because a guy couldn't just say anything to her to get in her drawers.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You couldn't spit 5 cents worth of game and expect you to just, get in her drawers. It wasn't like that. She's very, well put together mentally and emotionally. But you gotta come strong. And she don't even want to just lay down with you. Like you talking marriage, you talking this and the third. But these are things that kind of needs to be instilled when you're a child and you need to see these things. Like a lot of people, and I may be going a little tangent, but a lot of people seem to have this like negative view when it comes to marriage because it didn't work for their aunt, it didn't work for their mom, it didn't work for this, and that don't mean it's going to be your same situation. Your experience is not dictated upon somebody else's experience. Not all the time. Sometimes, your experience can be in correlation to what somebody else experienced and you had the same experience, but that's not for every single time. It's a way to go about things, and it definitely starts with the father, man. Like I see it with a couple of people in my family that missed out on having their dad, right? Like for example, my beautiful aunt, I love her to death. We all have flaws. I'm not like picking out on her, but my grandfather died at a young age. She didn't really get to have that experience with my grandfather. I never met the man. So, but I know that it greatly impacted her in some way. That maybe if you wasn't taken away and she had that relationship, maybe she wouldn't have had the issues whatever issue she has now, that she may deal with not having that father. And that goes for a lot of other people, man. The father is very important, especially in the Black community. But we also know why the father is not there. You look at slavery, how they broke the families apart. The mom, the dad was broken apart. There was no heading. How they, castrated the man and they did things to the man in front of the mom, in front of the kids, and stuff like that. I mean, it was a point in time in history when you was trying to get food stamps. Like your man couldn't be in the house if you really wanted to get food stamps, and that person came by to see everything was cool enough for you to get these food stamps. The man couldn't be there. So it's a lot, man. But I don't want to go on a tangent, but
I'm with you, man. I let it go wherever it's going to go because the conversation is needed on all angles. It's so in depth that we won't even be able to cover all of it within this short amount of time that we have. Is one of the things that I wanted to ask as well is anytime somebody from Philly is on, especially young men, um, the ramifications and the brevity that is gun violence that's in our city and how it impacts us. And that's why I said I'm happy to see you alive, well, and all of those different things, because you don't even have to be in it. And I always say I'm from the sidewalks, not from the street. From the sidewalks, know what's going on in the streets, but not, I was played it safe enough to be on the sidewalks. Just navigating that. At some point, I feel like, and you can share your experience of, will it ever end? Like, will it remain? This Philly has been like this forever. It has continued to be like this. The murders are growing up. Like, what are your thoughts and opinion on the gun violence within the city?
Will it ever end? I personally don't think so. My reasoning for saying that, the state of the Black community, like I said, Dr. Claude Anderson earlier, he talks about like what we do as a community, as Black people, what we do with our money. We don't keep our money within the community 7, 8 times like the white person, the Asian person, whoever does. And that greatly impacts everything, your economics. But more importantly than that, bro, the spiritual aspect. And there's no dichotomy when you're talking about faith. It impacts everything. So when you got sin in the world and people just wilding out doing what they want to do, they living recklessly, they feel like they're in control of their own lives and they ain't gotta listen to nobody. There's no structure and stuff like that. That's a lot of what's going on right now with these young brothers just wilding out. And some of them have parents and they still wilding out, but a lot of them don't have that strong family, that nucleus family in the home. where they have accountability in the home. A lot of people don't have that, and it's like we say it all the time. It takes a village to raise a child. A lot of times we don't have that village. I mean, you see it today, man. I gotta mind my business. I'm pretty sure, and I'm only 31. I didn't experience it, but from what I hear from older folks, it wasn't like that back then. If you found a kid doing something wrong and you knew their parents, you was allowed to maybe, tap them up, talk to them to rectify what they were doing wrong. It's not like that, man. It's about me. Everything is individualism. It's not even like that. If you go to the other parts of the world, the Western world, it's a we thing. And they look at, even when it comes to faith, like I mentioned earlier, like it's God and faith is this, and their life is this. But over here in America, our life is this, God is this, is this small. So we have it backwards. But you're seeing it, like you walk outside. I just watched on the news how these guys had robbed a daycare and they had pepper sprayed a bunch of toddlers, 1 to 3 years old. I would never do that. And I'm not saying I'm better than anybody, but those things is instilled in me, and we all know what's right and wrong. But I would never do something like that. Like, what? Bro, I don't know if we'll ever get out of this as Black people. I really don't. And then on top of that, which is the foundation in just sin and just the mindsets in the heart of people, like, is desperately wicked, man. They willing to do anything and everything. I got family members that's not, living the best and would do things like that. But, it's on me to talk to them and do the best I can, at least be an agent of change. I mean, I can stop them when they're ready to do what they're doing, but it's still on me to, like, give them some words of wisdom. Like it talks about in Proverbs, like, if you and your friends is talking about they want to go kill somebody or they want to go stroll on somebody, it's giving you wisdom not to do that. They only setting themselves up for failure while also taking a life potentially. Like, but it's your mind, bro. Your mind gotta be there. You gotta be in the right place. And your platform is giving that to expose the mentality and mental health and emotional health and spiritual health. We ain't got that as a totality in our community. And it's killing us. Like, literally it's killing us. Like, we're now considered the permanent underclass via Dr. Claude Anderson. Like, we ain't getting up out of this situation. It sucks, it's sad. And especially all the things that led up to this with slavery and Jim Crow, and just those whole eras, and even what we did with now the civil rights, and up to date in this present era of how we're handling things. And a lot of things are not changing in our community because we don't give the financial backing to these politicians, and that's just the bottom line. We scream and shout all the time of what we want changed, but if you ain't coming with no paper, they ain't listening to you. It's like you telling somebody like, yo, I need to go to the airport. You mind taking me, but you ain't giving no gas money, especially in today's world, these gas prices is high. You think a politician is going to listen to you that you want your neighborhood changed and cleaned up? You got to put some money in that politician. And that's just how I work. Like, you got to put money in that politician pocket to force him to go do those things. So we backed your campaign. That's why they got super PACs. You know what I mean? They got the Walmarts of the world, You got these different high profile families, and even in local communities, they got some real money. They can get the stuff done that they want to get done, And a lot of times you be mad at these politicians and stuff because they don't do nothing for Black people. Well, you do got to go vote, but then also you got to put your money together. When you look around in every city, there's a Chinatown. There's not a Black town. We got hoods. There's a Chinatown. Like, you go to San Francisco, you're going to find a Chinatown. We got Chinatowns here. You're going to find a Chinatown in Boston. They put their money together, bro, and they stick together. And ain't none of that BS in the streets. So we got a lot of work to do, but we got to wake up as a whole and realize the work we got to do and realize just how important it is. We do a lot of complaining. These young bulls is killing each other, and then killing innocent bystanders on purpose. Like, we gotta wake up, man, and stop being about ourselves. Of I gotta get this bread, which we all do. You gotta survive and eat, of course, but it's a bigger picture, man. And that's the service part I'm talking about. Like being your best self, so you can be able to service other people in your community. It matters because the trajectory that we go on, it ain't pretty. Like even if you look on social media and just to see our thought processes, bro, like how girls thinks, how God thinks, and you look on social media, it's a bunch of women versus men, black women versus black men. There's no let's work together. It's always an argument of whether it's money or who has the responsibility of this and that and the third. You gotta know your role, your God ordained role. Like, I know for me, and how I perceive it, I gotta be a provider, protector, a leader, a guider. And for the woman, she has her perspective role. She has to be a nurturer. She has to be loving and kind, just all those things. Like we got to come together, but it's a lot of fighting back and forth, fighting amongst our own actual families. Can't even get along, and we just got to be in a better space and place. But hopefully that happens. Will it happen? No.
Nah, and you dropped so many gems in that. And I love the fact, like you said, 30, 31, like just I think someone needs to hear it from the millennial age bracket, because I feel like when we do wake up, it's almost always too late. Like J.R. Smith, I was listening to him on a podcast the other day. He was talking about throwing money and stuff in the club and now waking up. And I'm like, J.R., you don't got as much money as you had at your potential, though, where you could have really shifted something. And it's always so much later. And I guess that's the thought process and the age. But almost like in our Black community, we're not afforded that opportunity to figure it out late. And I feel bad because we always kind of get it later in our 30s, early 40s, where we don't even have no relation to the youth almost, where they're not going to listen to us.
Yeah, and it starts young, bro. Like this is a fact, man. If you don't get that kid under your wing, when he's literally young, man, you could forget it at 12, 13 years old. You lost them already. Whoever has been their influence that they've been kind of listening to, because people, when you're young and you becoming a young adult, that time of from 0 to like 7 is a crucial time for them being most impressionable. Kids will follow your lead. They will imitate you. So it starts when you're young, man. Like you got to get these kids when they're young. Like they're not trying to listen to you when you wasn't there back then, and they had these thoughts and questions and stuff like that. And now they think they know it all, or they think they got to figure it out because they listen to old head on the block. You know what I'm saying? That pulled up, in an E class or whatever like that. You got to start young, man. But you got to be aware of these things and stop letting TV raise your kids and the streets raise your kids, and have something like in technology to a certain point too. I mean, it depends what you're using it for. I'm not saying technology in itself is bad, but how you utilize it could be good or bad. Bro, there's so much, man. I got a lot.
Now I know, I know, and I'm pretty sure we're gonna do a part 2 and just dive in on certain things too. But yeah, it's a lot, man. It was one of the reasons why I started this podcast, is just trying to, like, I didn't want the only one. A lot of people podcast, if you listen, it's just them and they're offering their perspective and ideologies. But I want to build, and I can say it out front because I don't think nobody's going to do it the way that I want. I want to build an encyclopedia of different stories, different topics, different perspectives. So that way, back in the day, we used to go and get an actual encyclopedia book to like learn stuff, a dictionary, and open it up. I want to be the Google of mental health resources, and like you can just pop on Will and he'll, say this type of thing, and you could pop on this expert, you could pop on this, motivational, whatever the case may be, so that way we can start reframing the mind, and there'll be enough that it'll be so embodied into your thought process that you'll be like, you know what, I seen so many people that look like me that are offering this perspective that I can kind of change the paradigm that I have about certain things.
Yeah, man, and I'm gonna encourage you, man, to keep going and keep doing this, because it's a lot of podcasts out here. They're not qualified to be no podcasts. I mean, you can do what you want. That's your freedom. But a lot of these guys' perspective is more so the guys that I'm hearing for real, a perspective is not sound. It's flawed at the foundation, whether they're talking about women or relationships and stuff like that. A lot of stuff is flawed. I try my best. I'm not saying I'm a saint. My faith is Christianity, and that's why I kind of had like my worldview comes from. So that's my foundation, biblical. It starts with God, it ends with God. And I got my flaws. I do my things, so I ain't perfect, but I try to frame my mindset in that because when you listen to a lot of people, man, they all over the place and they're giving a lot of bad advice, like a lot of bad advice, bro. And people running with it, man. My pop tell me all the time, man, if people think twice, you be the smartest person in your family. If you say what you thinking out loud and really think about it, man, that stuff don't make sense, bro. It's so flawed. But a lot of people, man, they just taking this information, like I said, from the internet, from somebody that's not qualified to speak about something. It's a lot of that going on, a lot of misinformation, to sum it up.
That's a gem that your pop said too, and I think I'm gonna use that for myself. You think
Yeah,
twice, you be the smartest person in your family. Like I love that. I want you to hang out there because you mentioned your faith and based out of Christianity. You talked about your sister with theology, and I want to, and you spoke on earlier of what's the, because I have the question. The question is, I think the direct correlation of the chaos that we see, like you said, is the direct relationship to how we don't value church and state, and we don't value like religion as much as we used to. Like I don't know any of my friends that go to church faithfully. Like I don't have any friends. I don't know anybody that be like, I'm a Christian. Even for me and my wife, we just was talking to my son goes to a Catholic school, but we don't even know what that means. He's learning more about religion than we are. Like he has like certain qualities and things like that, and prayers and confession. Like he was telling us about certain things. So I think as millennials, it started to fade away from us. Religion has lost us in a sense, and there, as much as it was dividing us at one point, like people, it was almost like you rep your set almost, but we needed that base of almost like a manual to live life. But now everybody going off of their own manual, and it shows.
Yeah, I remember Steve Harvey said, man, it's a lot of books out here that's cool to read or whatever. He said, but for real, you only need one book. You need the Bible. That's all you need. Now I know everybody don't agree with the Bible. I know you got different religions out here. That's between you and God when you meet him. You got to figure that out. But the Bible is, biblical instructions for your now living time. Like this is your instructions. Like people say all the time, there's no manual to raise your kids. There's no manual to you getting married and choosing the right person. I really disagree with that. I think it is. Now I know I ain't been married, so it's like, but so much I can say. But I know people like my parents. I know other people that have been married. I know other people that have been divorced. There's instructions, bro. Like for example, man, it tells you in the Bible, for children to obey a mother and father so your days may be longer. Like in Proverbs, it talk about keeping your father's instructions. And I know everybody don't have a father, but your heavenly father, that's his instructions. Keep his instructions. Keep your mother's instructions and stuff. But all of it comes down to actually just God, just where we at. Sin, people trying to do their own thing. But like I said, the instructions is out here because it also says for the parent side, don't easily provoke your children. You got a lot of that out here. I remember one time, bro, I was in the plaza over there near ShotRite, over here in Island. And I was standing outside of the post office, and this lady was walking her stroller. She had an infant in the stroller, but she also had maybe like a 4-year-old walking on the side. And she cursed the 4-year-old for walking on that side of her where the cars was coming, as if she knew better. She's 4. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you're the adult. That's on you. So it's bro, it's so much chaos and just, it's sad, bro. It's sad. And I'm not coming off like I'm better than anybody because I got my moments, I got my flaws, all that stuff. But the instructions is here. We gotta be willing to want those instructions. Those instructions really make a world of a difference, how you live your life. Like I said, Steve Harvey said, yo, if you want to get rich, if you wanted this, if you wanted it, open your Bible, bro. Open your Bible, the answers is in there. And there's plenty of people that like got real like testimonies of like, this is what I did by just looking at these scriptures. And it got me out of this. Like the scriptures talks about the 10 talents, how, just paraphrasing just real quick, 3 people, the gentleman gave them 3 different amounts of gold, and they had 3 different ways that they went about making more money. One person hid the money, another person gave a little bit, another person gave a lot to reinvest the money, and it came back tenfold. So like the plays is there, you know, the recipes is there. You got to be looking in the right place though. Like a lot of times we be looking, like how they say, we look for love in all the wrong places. Bro, we look for a lot of information in a lot of wrong places. So you just gotta make sure that you in the right place, man. People got a lot of questions because they want their answers, you know, brung to light. They got a lot of questions out here, like a lot of questions. Like people got questions about like, why is evil here? If God is so holy and God loves us, why is cancer here? It's a plethora of like real questions. Why did my grandmom die so early? You know, why this and why that? And sometimes it's because of your own doing. You know, if your grandma smoked cigarettes for 30 plus years, what you think was going to happen? You know what I mean? But, I mean, that's not the case all the time. Sometimes you got some real questions like, you know, unfortunately, you know, I had a cousin that just passed. She got hit by a car. I'm talking to his to his uncle, and his uncle had some real questions like, hey, why that happened to him? Out of all people who was trying to do right, who was trying to, you know, be on the right path, why him? You know, these some real questions, right? So we got to be in the right place mentally, emotionally to go seek that. And we got to want to go seek that. So yeah, man.
No, I'm with you. And in full transparency, the Bible was what I based out a lot of my life on. I love the story of Joseph. And my sons, both of my sons are named after names in the Bible. Their middle names is Joseph and Jeremiah. And my baby son, I wanted to name him King, but his mom wanted to keep the Z's together, so his name is King, and then my oldest son is Zion. So that's all based from the Bible. But I think to your point, you brought up 2 things where it said obey that father and that mother. I think it's hard when you give that example of the story where like the mom is doing that to the 4-year-old. So it's hard to follow certain instructions when the other person is not doing they're not acting what you think they should be doing as far as godly. And I think that's where the chaos comes from. It's like, I'm trying to obey this dude, but he don't want to be a part of my life. Like, you get what I mean?
Right. Now I feel what you're saying, man. It's tough. You know, everybody's situation is different. You know, it's some tougher situations than others. But like I said, like, you know, what you have in this podcast and you having these honest conversations, you know, the right information is out here, you know, and it can be tough listening to somebody. But at the same time, if you are of maturity and if it's a kid like watching this right now and you know something ain't right, right? It's, for example, it's tough to talk about, you know, it's nasty to talk about, but like, you know, I use my dad as an example. My dad was molested a few times when he was a kid, right? So use that example, man. You know, you're not supposed to be touched by this adult, and this adult is pretty close to you, but you are supposed to obey. That's where it does become chaotic, like you said. Like, well, like, I know this don't feel right, you know what I mean? But I'm supposed to obey. But people got to be in the right space and place, man, especially when it comes to our children who are so vulnerable, man. Like, people don't understand when you're a child, how you are raised makes a world of a difference of what type of adult you're going to be. Your childhood matters, man. Like, it's a lot of people out here walking around that's not healed. They haven't got over some things in their childhood. They have resentment towards their mom or their dad, you know, because your childhood really it sets up the rest of life, bro. Like it sets that tone, you know, what your life could be. You know, sometimes your life can be great as a kid, and then it's the opposite where you just kind of like wow out. But for the most part, man, how people are raised and they're a product of their environment, bro, that stuff matter, man. And people walking around here still holding on to stuff that they ain't never let go. Like God rest my grandmom's soul, you know, she grew up horribly. My dad did too. My grandma grew up horribly. She grew up in a Catholic home, and those times were different, right? Her wrong was right and her right was wrong. She confused. You know, she didn't have that proper love. She didn't have that family structure of mom and dad, and she never knew who her dad was till she died. Her sister, my grandma's sister, died on her deathbed saying that she never knew her purpose in life. And from what I was told from my dad and other people, she walked that out too. Her life was consistency of that statement on her deathbed. Like she was all over the place. She was wild. Like, and her son is now doing like life in prison because of the standard that she had in her household. He wilded out and he was a great athlete, man. He had scholarships to Penn State, Auburn, like full scholarships. He was a All-American and went left. So like that stuff matters, man. So if you listening and if you could be honest with yourself and you know you're not giving the best atmosphere and you know you could do a whole lot better, you know you struggle within yourself, you gotta take that, deal with it so you can have a better situation set up for your child. So then they can have a better situation set up for their child. We got to create good habits within our family and our community because we got to break these generational curses. We got to break these transgressions against each other and these iniquities that you know we have that you know these are passed down from generation to generation. Like it's a bunch of alcoholics in my family, bro. I choose not to drink alcohol, you know, because I see what it does and has done. My dad growing up with, you know, was an alcoholic. You know what I'm saying? My family can drink like a fish. You know, my great grandfather, he was Irish. They love they Jameson. You know, so it's like it's a pattern, man. If we wake up, that link, those links that are generational curses, we can snap one of them joints. Then the whole thing falls apart. Now you can start a better wave, you know, a better link of positivity and love and compassion and understanding and being able to forgive and apologize, you know, and stuff like that, man.
Yeah, no, you said something key with generational habits, and I got two more questions as we begin to close out. One of them is you talked about in 2017, you made like one of the shifts in your life and having to change that perspective. What was that moment like that caused you to say, you know what, I got to make some shifts and some changes in my life? Whatever you feel free speaking on.
Yeah, man. So during this time, I wasn't happy where I was working at. You know, I thought I had a lot more to offer, and I kind of felt stuck. You know, like I said, I was eating all crazy, just wasn't really taking care of myself, and that wasn't like me. You know, and honestly, what happened was, you know, when you're a kid and all you do is think about going to the league, whether that's the NBA, the NFL, those things don't happen, and you don't have that plan of like what I'm gonna really do out here, because most people don't make it to the league, NBA, NHL, whatever you want to say. You know, that can weigh on you, and a lot of times you don't have that purpose, and you're looking for it, and you just kind of like I said earlier, you just doing whatever you want to do. You know, you're not diving into your scriptures. You're not really, you know, having good habits and a daily routine that keeps you on the right path. You know, I wasn't doing those daily routines and what was keeping me on the right path. And one day one day I was with my pop. He was like, "Dad, man, you fat." Now, mind you, my pop is a former boxer, Golden Gloves, all that. Sparred with Pernell Whitaker, Bernard Hopkins, like grew up in boxing, like my whole family. So when he said that, I'm like, Dad, because I'm used to being an athlete. I played football, I boxed, I ran some track. Like when my pop said that, that's how like that father figure, that father is very important. Because when he said that, I woke up. I said, yeah, this ain't me. It took my dad to say something that small, but it was that big of an impact. So I went and I changed my whole situation. Like I said, you know what? And also what helped too, I watched this documentary called What the Health, and that really put it in plain sight, just how impactful this food is. That's why I was saying earlier, what it's doing to our community, right? What you put in your body matters. It impacts your mindset, obviously your physical being, inside your organs, your kidneys, your liver, your colon, your gut, all that stuff really matters, man. So I made that change back then because I said, you know what, this ain't me, and I want to be the best me as possible. So that kind of triggered some things to kind of get me to where I'm at now. Now, I do eat fish. I love salmon, I love trout. But it's a lot of stuff I don't eat. I try to really stay away from dairy products. If people knew, especially men, when it comes to dairy products, that's a big thing that causes prostate cancer, is those dairy products. But it's a whole system though too. Don't get it fooled. Don't get it messed up. They know what they're doing. They put this stuff on our shelves, knowing that it's going to give us this disease, that disease. But it's a money game, because if you don't got people being sick, or the hospitals ain't making as much money, especially the insurance companies not making as much money, those rehabilitation centers not making money. This whole thing is a scheme. And so but you got to be aware. I think you got to unlearn some of these things to relearn what you really need to know. And I ain't there yet. I got like way more to go, but I think that, I'm very grateful for what I do know now, and I would love to share, and whoever's willing to listen. So.
All right, so I got a question that popped up, and you can let me know if we can cut this part out, or it's a genuine question. You talked about the field that you in now, life insurance and being in sales or whatever the case may be, and then balancing that out with health. And almost in your career path, if people aren't sick or like doing the things, like it directly affects it. You get what I mean? Like it's insurance. Like if people have to get that or get sick or need that in order for your field to be profitable. To that you say what?
Bro, I'm now just getting into insurance. It's been like the last month, and I learned like a plethora of information. And a lot of people, insurance is for death, as we all know it, right? But it's also like a lot of living benefits. So, for example, man, like correlating health with insurance, man, if you get that C word from your doctor and he says, yo, such and such, such and such, I'm sorry to tell you, you in stage 2 of cancer. That was my pop at one point. He's good now. He's cancer free, thank God. But it's like, if you get that call, how you gonna replace your income? Because you can't work. You're too busy going to dialysis, radiation, chemo, all that stuff. Like, what you gonna do? So insurance is very important, man. Like, and the rich and wealthy white people, they know about insurance. And all insurance is a transfer of risk. If I'm doing this and something happens, how can I transfer my risk over here? That's where insurance companies come in at. They're in the business of you transferring your risk on them. And a lot of Black people don't have that in their mind to utilize. They push it off. Like, it was a young lady that I was talking to some few weeks ago, and she was telling me how when her grandma died, they didn't have life insurance, so they all had to come together and put money up so they can give her a proper burial and whatnot. But that was $700, $800, whatever they put up, that could have been used for something else that was more pertinent, you know? But insurance is very, very crucial because, for example, if you have a situation at your house where you're going through it with your mortgage, they have what's called a decreasing term policy. A decreasing policy which allows you to access money from that policy to help you pay for your mortgage. So a lot of people don't know these things. Like, how are you going to replace your income? How are you going to transfer your risk? Man, it's through these policies. You do a financial analysis of what your income looks like. And that's another thing too. Like our money, and I'm working on it myself. Like our money, we need to inspect our money often. We need to have a budget. We need to have a financial analysis that actually my company, World Financial, they give out for free. It's complimentary. So the same financial analysis that you would get at a Charles Schwab or Edward Jones, you can get with us free. And what it's teaching you is how to manage your money, cash flow, right? Bringing in more than your expenses, lowering your expenses, raising your income, right? And when you subtract your income and your expenses, you have a discretionary savings that's left over, and it's relative to whoever you're talking to. So, say if it's $400, like how are you utilizing that $400? What are you doing with the extra money? And if it's not enough, well, how are you going to get more? How can you make an extra 3,000 a month or $700 a month and stuff like that? So it's a whole play, man. It's from cash flow to emergency savings, which should be 3 to 6 months, or if you're a good saver, 6 to 12 months. Then you have debt management. You know, how are you consolidating your debt? Are you doing a debt avalanche or a debt snowball? You know, a lot of times, and I'm realizing this too, a lot of times we be trying to look for these plays of how to invest. We do these midterm investings of getting in the stock market, the cryptocurrency and stuff, but a lot of us don't have the 6 foundational things that we need to have in place in order to be well off. We so busy trying to, invest money in this, invest money in that. But bro, sis, you ain't got 6 to 12 months saved up just in case something happened. So it's like when I say it's a plethora of knowledge, when you jump into understanding your financials and also life insurances and stuff like that and cash management, bro, we could be up so much further up the road if we understood these things and we took these things at heart. So life insurance is very, very, very crucial to have, like very, because we all have money issues at some point in our life. We all got money questions, but nobody want to talk about money. No, nobody want to talk about money. No. We talk about it. Oh, I'm getting money, but we're not having no real conversations of, money. It ain't really, really, really happening. And a lot of times our parents don't really know about money. They can tell you how to save. Boy, turn my stove off. Let me waste some my gas. Turn my light off. They can tell you how to save a couple of dollars by turning this off, but a lot of times, our parents, they don't know how to make an extra $300. They'll tell you to go get a second job. That ain't it. Get a second, third job is not it, man. You just working yourself to death. And on top of that, you just creating more taxes for yourself. If you was to ask somebody what's the greatest expenses that you would incur in your life, somebody may say food, somebody say them kids or whatever. It's taxes. When you spend money, it's tax. When you get money, it's tax. All around the way you look at it, if you invest the money, it's tax. So what the wealthy talk about is how to shield their money from taxes. You know what I mean? So it's a lot, bro. It's a lot.
No, I'm going to have you back to talk more about that, especially it's income tax season and things like that. But I'll leave off with this because I do want you to come back and talk about just a whole conversation about financial wellness and relating it to mental wellness. But I didn't realize the importance of life insurance or insurance in general until I got into a car accident, and I ain't have no car insurance. It was lapsed. I ain't have my regular health insurance, like that was lapsed. And then if I would have died, I had no life insurance. And so that was the wake up call for me. But for our community in general, how many times we gonna do fish fries? How many times we gonna do GoFundMe's? How many times we about to fight each other over getting the money up together to have this conversation? And I think if more people, especially with a person like yourself, have those type of conversations, like bump the benefits, like look at what y'all just had to do for your grandmother, or how y'all had to do for the person that got shot in the streets, and how y'all had to, that's the reason why it's all important, because that's real life effective.
Yeah, man, especially for those that want to dabble in the street, man, they should be the ones that really got the life insurance. You don't know when you about to die. You don't know.
And you want to leave that burden to your family once that like that's selfish at that point.
Yeah, and I think what's a good nugget to know is, man, the earlier that you jump on insurance, the cheaper it'd be. Because what the insurance companies take into consideration is your age and then your medical history. Like they could literally go look up once you apply like your medical history, and they could even deny you. You know what I'm saying? It goes with a couple of things. Like if you have a, like a hazardous hobby that you are into, like say if you do motor racing or something like that, like they take all that in consideration. So the earlier the better, man. Like seriously. But you right. Like people insure, we got insurance on our cell phone, we got insurance on our house, we got insurance on the car. You're not gonna insure your life.
Mm.
Your life. Your life is more important than this cell phone. Come on, bro. So and like I said, like I'm not coming off like I know it all or anything. Like I'm learning stuff too. But when I think about it, I'm like, dang, man, like I got my cell phone, they got insurance, they got insurance, but my life not insured. Like this is what allows me to have these things by me just being here.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's just like but these are the things, the conversations that we need to have much more. Like, earn your leisure, they doing it. They got the financial literacy part. I don't know if they got like insurances per se, but they are doing it. They having these real conversations. Like we can have other earn your leisures, and we can have more mental health podcasts and things that's talking about the pertinent things of life that really matter, that really dictate, where you'll be at in 20 years if you set this up properly, like insurances and stuff like that. This stuff really, really, really matters, man. And a lot of times we be so stressed and we be so in our emotions because we don't have that financial freedom. If your mom working 2 jobs and she already tired and she come home with an attitude and it's creating friction in the house, and a lot of times you even see it with marriages too. A lot of marriages don't be lasting because of the finances, man. Like it creates a struggle. You already dealing with the person's personality. You already dealing with their background and how they grew up, and y'all coming together trying to make it work. You don't want finances to be at the top of the list of the struggle. That's a recipe for disaster amongst other things. So
yes, sir. My last question to you before we get out of here, and thank you for all of the things that you've like brought to the table, because it really is a great conversation. What is your overall viewpoint, experience, perspective on mental health in the Black community?
My overall viewpoint on mental health in the Black community, it's not where it needs to be. It's not where it needs to be because of what happened in slavery. We wasn't given the proper tools to recover from that. We just weren't. White people didn't care enough to not put us in slavery, and they don't care enough to give us the tools to recover from it. So it's on us. It's on us. And ain't nobody gonna help us but us. And God, but you gotta be willing to let God help you do. You gotta be in the right place. But it's on us to make sure that we have these things in place. It's on us to have like these community days where you can come out, if it's back to school month, you giving out some backpacks, but before you do that, have a real conversation on mental health, especially in our communities. Go down north, go down West Philly, go down the fourth ward or whatever, and like go to the trenches where you can really have an impact and really talk about these things. Mental health is sad, man, because even when you see it with black men more times than not are the ones that are committing suicide than women. And that's just period. Just mental health period, not even like putting a color on it. But like black men go through a lot. Black women go through a lot too, don't get me wrong. Like I'm definitely not cutting them short at all. But when you talk about mental health and understanding, like, even when it comes to women, like as much as they have on their plate, when there's not a man in the house and they gotta all the responsibilities, ain't got no help. But then on the other side, you got the man who's looked at, like I said, to provide, protect, guide, lead. It's a lot of pressure on him to produce. As a man, and he got kids or a wife or what have you, it's a lot of pressure. A lot of times we don't even have those real conversations amongst each other as brothers, like how you mentioned earlier. Like if you can have that brotherhood, where you can have, and I have it. You know, I have my group of friends, and we can have some real conversations. And I can be like, yo, B, yo, Dime. I can be like, yo, Reg, like this is going on, that's going on, and have those real, conversations where it can be impactful that you got your friend listening. It can really help you in whatever you're talking about because they understand you're a black man, you're a man, that's really trying to make things happen for their own family. It's very important, but it's not talked about enough, man. A lot of people got a lot of issues that they don't talk about. You talk to yourself more times than you talk to anybody else on this planet. You have the most thoughts to yourself. That's why you got to be nice to your own self. Be nice to yourself. Stop being mean to yourself. Stop calling yourself dumb if you make a mistake or stupid or whatever like that. Like, be nice to yourself. Give yourself some grace. Give yourself some love. Give yourself some me time. Like, I know that it's a thing about self-love out here, which I don't really like. It may be crazy, but I don't really agree with that, man. Like, for my own reasons. And maybe I could dive into a little bit, but we love ourselves a lot. We think much more of ourselves than we ought to a lot of times. And we always think that we got the answer and we don't want to listen to nobody. I think when you give yourself up and you become a service to other people, I think that's when you find that little freedom. When you get outside yourself, like, do you take care of yourself? Like, yeah, obviously that's why you wash up. It's already kind of automated. You wash up, that's self-love. You know what I mean? But I think if we can love each other more and God more, I think that'll do more justice. You know what I mean? Like, obviously you gotta get yourself right. And that is a form of like loving yourself. But I think, especially being in America, there's so much I this and I that and me this and me that. Like, and I think that's the purpose aspect too. Like, a lot of people talk about passion, right? But there's a lot of things people passionate about that ain't good for them. You know, what about the purpose? Like, why are you here? What is your purpose? Like, I'm passionate about being a Sixers fan. You know what I mean? But I'm not working for the Sixers. That's not my passion. But my purpose may be to open up a nonprofit organization that caters to single mothers and giving them the resources that they need to raise their children and give them the proper structure, whatever that looks like. That may be my purpose. That's also my passion because I'm passionate about it. But it's the purpose part for me, man. Like, and that's what I'm saying. Like, it's a lot of like misinformation, like that people just like these phrases and these philosophies, like, and I don't be agreeing with them, bro. Because if you really think about it, like, and break it down, it's flawed at its core, at its premise. It's flawed. So, and I'm not coming off like I know everything, but I know what I know, and I would love to, and you giving me the opportunity, and I appreciate that again for me to just like share my little insight.
Nah, thank you for that because more people need to hear different perspectives and different conversations and having that counterbalance to the culture that you're talking about, like having that counter perspective. Because if you only get in one voice, you'll think that everybody thinks like that. And so if you hear another voice, you're like, you know what? Maybe I agree over here. Like you said, with Earn Your Leisure, so much misinformation about financial literacy and the certain plays and like, yo, you gotta do it this way. Where Earn Your Leisure is doing a thing where they're giving you all types of plays that you can follow and different, variations. So I thank you and appreciate you for like sharing that perspective and offering that up to the community. Any last thoughts you want to leave the people with?
I would just encourage people to, pray, read, the scripture, seek a good foundation of friends and stuff like that. Like, I was talking to my little cousins. So long story short, these are cousins that I wasn't too familiar with because I don't really be around as much. But I seen them and I heard them acting, kind of unruly or whatever. And in particular, one of my girl cousins trying to fight and stuff. I'm like, y'all worried about the wrong stuff. Y'all trying to fight and worried about a block that you don't even own. Like, y'all worried about the wrong stuff. So I said that to say, if you got a group of people around you that's hyping you up to go have an attitude and go beat somebody up or to go, act ill towards somebody, find yourself a new set of friends. And that might even include your family members. Sometimes you gotta distance yourself from your family members So, I just encourage people to just really just seek God first. Um, think twice before they do or say something. Look into life insurance and those policies and stuff. And you got any questions or concerns, hit me up for those life policies and insurances and whatnot. And just remember, like, you got one life to live, bro. You only get to do this one time. I think maybe when you do realize that, maybe that's when your life will actually start.
And on that note, please remember to subscribe and share this podcast with somebody, and share this information, because I know it'll touch somebody's soul, and just listening to the different insights and perspective and information that Will just provided. His Instagram will be over our heads, so y'all can get in contact with him. It'll also be in the description if y'all want to just contact him and have a conversation, or continue the conversation, or contact him about getting financial literacy and information around life insurance and other things that he may be offered. Like I said, we'll have him back to have more conversation just specifically on that, because I think that's a big conversation. But remember to go leave a review on iTunes, all that good stuff. Tell them what you liked about. Name a quote that Will said in this episode that was great. Leave a review on Apple. And remember that this platform has never been about being a replacement to therapy. It's an alternative place where people share therapeutic stories. Thank you for listening.